your dreams.
So today we're going to be talking about is Genshin Impact back. That's basically it. That's basically the video. If you like the video, just leave a like and subscribe. So the upcoming 5.0 Natlan seems to be a fresh start to Genshin, right? It doesn't really feel like Fontaine or Inazuma or Sumeru. The animations in Natlan just seem a lot more bubbly. It seems a lot more lively. It looks very similar to Zenless Zone Zero. ZZZ also has very bubbly, lively animation, and that's basically what I'm getting at from looking at Natlan. I think Natlan is going to be like a little soft reboot for Genshin Impact. At least that's what I'm predicting anyway. There are some pretty good changes that are upcoming in Natlan. They're not perfect by all means, but I do think it's a pretty good start. For one thing, players will have an option to choose between a specific 5-star standard character. Saying better late than never definitely applies here. I do think this is a pretty good thing. Some of these standard characters are generally pretty good, right? Tighnari, he's a Dendro character. I don't think there's a single bad Dendro character, so Tighnari is a pretty good pickup. We also got Jean, who's a really good healer. She also works really well with Furina, who is a buffer. We have some pretty decent DPS characters as well, like D-Luke, right? He's pretty decent. Keqing, she's also pretty decent. She's also very good with Dendro. Mona is also a pretty good sub DPS. Her burst also provides you with team damage. Overall, getting a free 5 standard character, that's pretty good. All right, that's a pretty good step in the right direction. Maybe one of these days HoYoverse can give out a free limited 5-star character. Next change that they got is the artifact system. We can basically, there is an item in game now that can basically let us choose the main stat. I think it can also let you choose 2 substats as well. Now these items are pretty fucking rare. I think you can only get like 1 per patch. I'm not really exactly sure how rare these are, but they are going to be pretty rare. But I do think that's, you know, that's pretty decent as well, right? If you have a artifact that has really good substats, but a very doo-doo main stat, you can at least finally change the fucking main stat on your artifacts, which is pretty decent. And the fact that these items are rare basically means that you should probably conserve these for a very good godly artifact. But I think the best ways to use these is have an artifact with shitty main stat, probably decent substats, and if you get the decent rolls on that artifact, you can use that item to change the main stat to however you desire. Another change that they got is the welcome back thing in Genshin Impact. Basically, if a player hasn't played for a long time but they finally come back to Genshin, there are quite a few changes for this. For one, if you come back from Genshin after 2 weeks of not playing, you can basically get a free 10 pull. Now I've seen quite a few haters basically meme on this, saying that, oh, you could just not play the game at all and get more free pulls, but that's not actually the case. There is a cooldown in order to activate this welcome back event. I think this is a really good change, especially for those that are pretty busy, any seasonal students or any seasonal workers, right? If they can't play Genshin Impact, they got to take a little break for a bit. They can take a break for a bit, come back and, you know, get a free 10 pull. All right, so that's pretty good. Another change is more stamina. We're getting more stamina in the game, right? I know some people complain about the lack of stamina in the game. We're getting more stamina, which basically means you can sprint more. I think Keqing, I know Keqing's kit relies on charge attacks, so having more stamina for Keqing will also be pretty good. More stamina means you can climb a little bit more longer. You don't really have to worry about falling off when you're climbing. I know Kirara is a pretty good climber. If you got Kirara, you're pretty much set to go. Kaya also has, I think he can also climb pretty well. I think he has like a stamina reduction or something. More stamina, pretty good. You can run longer, you can climb longer, you can charge attack as many times as, not as many times as you can, but you can charge attack more often. The game itself also seems to be giving more pulls overall through the statue of the 7. I think if you get like unlock a statue, you basically get more primos. I honestly do think that Natlan seems to be like a soft reboot for Genshin Impact. Another thing that I've noticed, it's not like a change itself, but a thing I noticed is that the 2 upcoming 5-star characters, Mulaney and Kanich, they both have a passive that lets you find the items in Natlan. The specialties in Natlan, they both have passives that have that let you find the specialties in Natlan. In previous regions, you were basically forced to pull for one fucking character in order to get that passive. For Fontaine, you were basically forced to pull for Linny if you want to find Fontaine's passive. In Sumeru, you were basically forced to pull for Tighnari if you want the specialties for Sumeru. But for Natlan, you at least have two decent options off the start. Both of these characters also have some travel power creep. They can both travel in the overworld pretty damn fast. Mulani can basically hoverboard on her shark, and Kanique can basically, you know, Tarzan around like a wild man. Not to mention, you can basically get both of these characters for free if you just played the new Natlan map. Regardless of whether you have a 50-50 or not, you can definitely get both of these characters if you just played the game. Oh, I also forgot to mention that they are changing the gacha system a bit. Basically, if you're on a 50-50, it's gonna change into a 55-45 instead, which is, you know, like I said before, it's not perfect, but it is a step in a direction, a good direction. Basically, if you're gonna be on a 50-50, you have a chance to not lose the 50-50, if that makes sense. No pun intended, but I do think that Natlan is going to be I think it's going to be a fire patch. I think 5.0 is going to be pretty fire. I think it's a little too early to say if Genshin Impact is really back, but I do think it's having its foot in the right direction. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that they are changing things up in the Imaginary Theatem. They are adding more floors. I don't know what else other changes they can make, but hopefully over time they can actually, you know, change the Imaginary Theorem, because as of right now, I think it's kind of garbage. But the fact that they're taking a look at it at least is a pretty good step in the right direction. The CEO of HoYoverse, Dawei, did do a speech the other day, and to summarize this speech, it's basically him saying that I plan to improve Genshin Impact, and that's basically it. One important aspect from the speech that caught my attention is that Dawei said that HoYoverse had to basically go through a bunch of complaints and criticisms and basically sort out which criticism was from an actual player that enjoys the game and which criticism came from a bitch ass hater. HoYo haters are a pretty big problem, not just in the HoYoverse community, but in this gacha gaming space in general. They're basically almost similar to like an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend that just doesn't know when to let go. It's okay if you don't like the game, but you just gotta learn to let it go, because constantly hating on the game isn't really it's not gonna fix anything. They're the type of people that after the breakup with their spouse or whatever, you know, they'll still probably drive by their ex's house to see how they're doing, looking at the window or whatever, maybe even look at their Twitter, their Instagram, just to see how they're doing, and maybe even have a picture of their ex, you know, underneath their pillow or some shit. And this doesn't apply to HoYo haters either. This can also apply to Kuro haters, Snowbreak haters, etc., right? They really hate something so much that they basically hate watch the shit. Even the people that don't even play it anymore, they still like follow the news every now and then, but it's like, if you quitting a game, you might as well just let the shit go. Why bother watching the news of the game that you just quit or that you quit years ago? So Dawei basically said that they're going to focus on the criticism of the players that play their games, which is pretty similar to what the Snowbreak devs were saying when they were getting a lot of flack from the feminists, the femcells, right? They basically said, you know, we're going to focus on the players that play our game. I think one of the reasons why Genshin, especially, or not just Genshin, but even like HoYoverse, right? The reason why HoYoverse has a lot of haters is because there's a infestation of tourists. Genshin got pretty big because of the whole lockdown situation, and with people being locked down, they had not much to do. So they basically checked out Genshin Impact, expecting a Breath of the Wild in their pockets. But once the lockdowns were over, people were starting to realize that, you know, it probably wasn't really all for them. They probably got to the gacha system and was like, what the fuck? They probably got to the waifu pandering. They probably got to the, you know, the tragedy of losing a 50-50. By the time you get to the end game of almost any gacha, there's really not really much to do. You're basically logging in for 5 to 10 minutes and you log out. I think HoYoverse themselves have realized that they kind of have like a tourist infestation in their games. So they made ZZZ, which had a lot of lollies and furries, which triggered a lot of people. And now, you know, it kind of feels like they might actually go back to their roots. Because I know in Honkai Impact 3rd, they got rid of the male MC, probably because they want waifu chads to come back to the game. It does seem like the Genshin team is kind of listening. I do think 5.0 seems like a pretty fire patch. I am pretty excited for this patch. I do think that Natlan will be a soft reboot for Genshin Impact. They are taking a pretty decent step in the right direction. Hopefully they don't go down the wrong path, but as of right now, I think they're taking a pretty good step. It's a pretty good first step that they have for 5.0. Hopefully the rest of Natlan will be pretty fire as well. That's basically all I really have to say. Let me know what you guys think. Are you at least excited for Natlan? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys later.
Bye bye now. Come again soon.